Hello and welcome to the Plant Paradigm Podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with amazing individuals from all around the world and look for ways to create a clean, green and sustainable future for us, the planet and all beings. I'm your host, Tom Simak, a fellow plant eater and athlete who strives to optimize every living ecosystem, passionate about looking after this beautiful floating rock we call home and all the lovely creatures that dwell among it. Today's episode is incredible, but before we get into it, I just want to let everyone know that on the first week of every single month, we send out the monthly paradigm, which is your debrief of what's happening that we think is vital to know. You're not going to be notified of every little thing that's happening. We're not a news outlet, so to speak, but in three categories: veganism, health, and the environment. I will put out one crucial piece of information I think that we should all be across. These are things like how plastic affects our human body, how maybe we're antibiotic resistant and the threat to us from antibiotic resistance and things of this nature. So to sign up to the newsletter, head to theplantparadigm.com and sign up there. Now, on to the episode. We're chatting with Ross and Ramona Headifen, a couple based in Port Melbourne who have become local legends by picking up over 500,000 pieces of rubbish. That's 2 tons of plastic over the course of a few years on the same 55-metre stretch of beach. That's insane. They even founded and joined part of the Beach Patrol to further this initiative. Their hard work has been featured on 9 News and the Herald Sun. This conversation walked all around the looming and big issue that is plastics. From the cleanups, the production, Australia's systems, and how we can move forward with new and innovative solutions. Unlike plastic, this conversation is definitely not a waste of your time. More than anything, you'll get to hear from some everyday heroes that get up every single morning and try to make this world into a little bit of a better place. And that's really inspiring. And with all that said, I will see you on the other side, and I hope you enjoy this conversation between Ross, Ramona, and I. Ross, Ramona, welcome to the Plant Paradigm Podcast. How are you going?
You're good today. It's really good.
Great. Thanks, Tom, for having us.
My absolute pleasure. So there's a lot we're going to talk about today. Firstly, I'm actually genuinely curious. You're known, and you came on my radar by doing beach cleanups.
Yep.
And you guys, I read somewhere, have picked up just a ludicrous amount of rubbish since 2017, I believe you started.
Right, yeah.
What are we talking about? How much rubbish is out there?
There's a lot of rubbish out there, but I think what you're referring to is a 5-year survey that Ramona and I did. We wanted to establish what type and how much litter was in the Port Phillip Bay. And the only way to do that properly was to go do the survey on the same piece of beach every day for a year, because all the seasons are different. What you get in winter is different than what you get in summer. So we had to do it every day for a year. So I think that's what you're referring to. So over a year, we'd pick up huge amounts of plastic.
So we did start before. So before we started the survey, we joined a group called Beach Patrol, which is a group of volunteers that meet once a month for an hour to pick up rubbish. So that's how we got started in the rubbish game, shall we say. And we joined that group in 2011. And seeing each time, like Ross said, it's different by season. So in the summer, you would see a lot more rubbish. Realizing later it's because there's a lot more people outside.
Right.
And people create litter. Winter comes along, and you would think there'd be none at all because more people aren't out. However, what's in the bay, which has been floating down from our various rivers, gets washed up with certain tides or with certain winds. So where we live here in Port Melbourne, when we get a southerly wind, our bay brings in the rubbish that's been sitting in the bay. We're not really sure how long. I mean, some of it is really worn down, so it's probably been there for years, and other bits are new. But we really, like Ross said, we want to get more of a handle on it, because if all we do is pick up rubbish, that's all we'll ever do. And that's an important part of our volunteer group, Beach Patrol. But we also got to thinking, we need to stop this problem. We don't want to have this volunteer job forever.
Yeah.
How do you actually stop litter? How do you stop rubbish? So going back to where does litter come from, looking at what the source of litter is. And that's what Ross had the idea actually to start doing this survey. And he came home one day and said, you want to do it? Let's go find a beach, do a survey. We'll do it every day. We're like, okay, yeah, why not?
So you're not exaggerating when you're saying every day. Like people say, I work out every day or I do whatever every day, but you literally got up every day, went to the same 35-meter stretch of beach.
Correct.
And you picked up rubbish.
So so the very first year we did it, we did every day. We were away for maybe 3 weeks in that time. And so we got other volunteers to do it. So the very first year, every day, somebody was picking up rubbish off that beach. Most of the time it was us. The second year, we did it every day we were in Melbourne. We didn't ask anybody else to help because they thought we were crazy enough doing it for a second year. So we probably got 10 and a half months.
More than that.
Of data. Yeah, true, because we weren't away that long. Yeah. Anyway, then we thought, we're going to keep doing this again? And we would it's a weird addictive thing. Like when you pick up rubbish, you can never not see it anymore. You can never not see litter. So we kept going again, but the third, fourth, and fifth year, we did it 3 times a week because it did become very time consuming. But yeah, that first year, literally, the first 2 years, every day we were in town, we literally did it every morning.
I'm very impressed, but I'm also curious to how that worked in terms of noting down what you're actually picking up, because that would have been almost more tedious than the actual picking up of the rubbish. What kind of structure did you write down, like have like cans and then have like a tally thing?
Yeah,
exactly.
We started off the first year, we had a tally of 16 different categories. Mm-hmm. Bottles, plastic bags, straws, bottle tops, 16 different items. Then about halfway through the year, we're like, we need to expand this because we're finding more of these particular items, like a Ziploc bag. So we wanted to count Ziploc bags. And then we're finding a lot of fishing bait bags. So we added another category just for fishing bait bags.
Instead of just calling them a plastic bag, we actually could identify what they were. Yeah. So we added.
We would find, in spring, we'd find a huge amount of bottle labels, which you wouldn't think would be a big litter, but we'd pick them up by the hundreds just floating on the water's edge. So that made another category, and often that would be a second or third most common item.
That's insane. So what was, like, going the other way, what was the least common item that you had there?
Probably an item like cutlery.
Yeah.
We'd find some, but not too many.
Right.
Plastic syringes, we wouldn't find, we'd find a dozen or 20 a year sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the bits that we found too were just that there were fragments of plastic. So we categorized either whether it was a hard plastic or soft plastic, and then we just arbitrarily picked a size, saying if it was under 50 mil, then it was small. We would say small hard or small soft. And if it was over 50 mil, we would say hard large or soft large.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't tell what it was.
Of course.
It could be just a piece of film and you don't know where it came from anymore. But like Ross said, a bottle label, you could identify that. You could see the brand on it, And it would, like they would still be in a circular ring. So they're very dangerous to wildlife because they just like float off of the plastic bottle. So now this plastic bottle all of a sudden has a bottle. You got the bottle itself. You got the lid. You have that little ring underneath the lid. You have the label. All of these things become litter and can really harm our wildlife too. So
yeah, it's insane. Like, I wish there was a way to send it to the company and issue like some sort of fine of different magnitudes.
You don't know how many times Tom would be like, can we just collect all this and bring this to Macca's, 7-Eleven, Coca-Cola, Mars? Food wrappers are another huge category.
Yeah.
Huge category.
Do you think it's a huge category? Because, I mean, everyone... I talk about this a little bit because it frustrates the hell out of me when I see someone litter. Of course, that's going to frustrate anyone. But something that I've been thinking about is this person must be littering because they don't care about themselves. And so when we're looking, it's so fascinating when you say like the Mars wrappers. I'm like, I wonder, people who are eating Mars wrappers on, I don't want to categorize them, but on a general, quite regularly, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. They're obviously not prioritizing health. And if you're not prioritizing your own health, how are you going to prioritize the planet's health?
Exactly.
So true.
So it's almost like this full circular system that we have to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, the planet's not clean. Like it's almost like it's hard to ask someone to care about the planet if you can't even make them care about themselves.
It's the power of marketing. People buy into this marketing more than they buy into looking after themselves or where they live. You know?
Yeah.
And the cigarette is a fine example of what you're saying too.
Yeah, of course.
You know, you find the cigarette pack wrapped in plastic. So there's a little piece that gets ripped off the top. You can identify that. You can see that that's plastic from a cigarette packet.
Yeah.
You know, because it holds that little box shape. And then, like you say, you think, well, hang on, if somebody's smoking, with all the information we have about how that's not good for our health, then they obviously are making a choice to not look after themselves. Why the heck would they be interested in looking after where they live or the planet we all live on? And that's very frustrating. You're right. Because how do you get to make that connect? You know, how do you get people to make that connection? And we see people fishing, and again, not to generalize, because not everybody does, but people out fishing in the water, they will bring, you know, plastic, whatever, leave it there, or tuck it in the rocks as if that's getting rid of it. And they're fishing.
See it, it's not there.
Yeah. But it's like you're going to eat what comes out of this bay, but look what you're putting in it. It's really hard for me to understand how people that close to the bay don't make the connection.
All their lunch items, it'd be a plastic bag, there'd be a water bottle or a Coke bottle, and there'd be some sandwiches wrapped in plastic, and then a bait bag. And all of that's either thrown in the water or jammed in rocks or jammed in a rail before they leave. And you go down there and ask them, they're like, wasn't us, it was here
when we got here.
We got here.
Yeah.
But you get that answer every time. So.
Yeah. That's so funny. It's like you create your environment on such a literal level, because now we know unequivocally that fish contain so many microplastic. Birds are dying because these microplastics are clogging up their intestines. Well, I'm not causing it. I'm not out there fishing, and these fishermen's like, it's not me causing it because I'm not the one. It's like you can only beat around the bush for so long, and that's the most. I don't know, if someone goes fishing, for example, your local fishermen, people around the bay, if they're not commercialized, we know there's lots of problem with commercial fishing and litter. It's a whole
another podcast.
Yeah, it's crazy that they would leave that. I think if there is a subsector of the fishing population that doesn't do it, it's the locals, and if they do it, then we're all screwed.
Yeah, because you think they would understand firsthand the importance of and fishing line. That's another.
Those were all categories added into them. So by the time we finished after the 5th year, we had a sheet of 32 different line items of plastic.
And starting with 16.
Yeah.
That's insane. Have you noticed like a difference in the top categories over the years? Because it's 5 years, that's actually a decent time frame to look at changes and trends.
So I made a graph of the cumulative amount that we picked up over the year, and it was sort of an S shape because we started in autumn, so it'd be fairly flat through the winter. In spring, summer would come up that, and some would climb really steep, and then it would roll off. So it was just the cumulative amount. So we'd get like 250,000 bits a year, and
each year, you're saying?
Yes, sorry. Yeah. Over the 5 years, the curves are almost on top of each other. There was very little difference.
Really?
So there's no decrease in...
Yeah, right.
In the amount. And they all follow the same pattern. A nice
seasonal.
S-shaped curve due to the seasons.
Oh, I know I was going to add in too. So when COVID came around and we started having lockdowns and restricted outdoor times, less people out equates to less rubbish. But people had to start wearing masks. And I just find humanity does that a lot, unfortunately. We try to solve one problem, but we create another huge problem. And we don't attend to it, though. We just wait till it's massively almost out of control. And then we go, oh, should we do something? Is it, do we have time kind of thing? So we added mask, a PPE category, personal protective equipment, in the last year. We never ever saw a mask littered before the general public started wearing them.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're used in medical, again, it's not a bad product. It's a product that's needed in certain situations. But as soon as the general public had to wear them,
Yeah.
they just became littered like.
And we still pick them up. We pick them up this morning,
Wow, that's insane. So we that's a really cool example of how different industries handle, like the medical industry. If you've never, I'm sure a certain portion of their rubbish goes into the ocean, like every other industry as well. There's no avoiding that, unfortunately. But it's funny how they took full responsibility upon the use that they had. Like when we were up in Queensland, when we moved up, they banned single-use plastics for most industries besides medical. And I think we kind of said that's, I'm sure there's alternatives, but do I take that as a win? Absolutely, because the litter that they produce is so much smaller than every person every day getting a coffee or a takeaway cup or a plastic straw or a plastic bag or all these other categories. So it's like, yes, while it could be better, that's like a really big win. It's like the 80% of the rubbish has just been handled if they comply.
Yeah. But single-use plastic is that's almost everything in our category, isn't it? Our categories are all pretty much single-use plastic.
It's all consumer items,
And they're created to be used once.
Yeah.
Like the manufacturers, we start talking about responsibility and stewardship. The manufacturers, in general, make a product. They'll spend however many billions of dollars marketing, selling it, but they have no concern or responsibility, because we don't make them take responsibility, for the end of life of that product. So, or they put the word on there, please recycle me. Tick, I've done what I need to do. No, you haven't. That's not, like we don't force them to become, all right, well, all of these bottles or all of these lolly wrappers, we're going to bring them back to you. You figure out what to do with them. You made them. You made a profit from them. You expect government and volunteers and other groups to pick up when they become littered. You're not responsible for the harm they cause to our wildlife. Can we turn that table around? If they had to take that stuff back, I promise you they'd come up with a much better solution much quicker.
Because they often say, well, we can't control what the consumer does with it.
That's their way out.
Yeah, right. That's their way out, exactly.
If you didn't sell that item to start with, you wouldn't find them littered on the ground. So you are involved in the equation of the result we're getting. So, they talk about extended producer responsibility. And that's where we're going to have to go. And that's getting a lot more traction now.
How do you see that working?
So, we're getting a container deposit scheme. Queensland got one a couple of years ago. So that's going to be nationwide next year.
Really? So I knew that Victoria was against it. That's the last I heard of the topic.
Because of the
really slow.
The bottling lobbies, a lot of their headquarters are here, so they were lobbying severely, and the
packaging?
Hotels Association, they were lobbying against it, and but finally it got through, and so we'll have a national program, and that's an example of EPR, and that the consumers and the producers are both paying something to get this out of the environment. It'll take our recycling from, currently we recycle in Victoria 25% of plastic bottles. It'll go over 80% in just a few months.
Is that what has happened to the other states that have? Yeah. That's really fascinating, because I believe that, and I don't struggle to believe that, because I first saw that in Berlin. When I visited Germany, they have a scheme everywhere. All the supermarkets have a different box if you're recycling a bottle, cardboard. There's actually different, and it spits out money straight away. It's insane. And in Queensland, when we were up there, you'd see we saw people who are between homes literally go into the rubbish bins and take out what they need. I'm like, I have no judgment towards that. If that gives you some sort of funding, that's helping the environment. And I wonder if Victoria will have, I hope it has the exact same win, because I haven't looked at the math or the analytics there, but from a tourist point of view, it'll make everything look cleaner, hopefully. But also, why is it taking this long?
We ask that question a lot, Tom.
So in Beach Patrol, we've been advocating for a container deposit scheme for 10 years now.
Wow.
And, they don't just listen to us. They listen to a lot of people. And it's all started by New South. And the Premier got in and says, I want to reduce litter by 40%. And the fastest way to do that was to get plastic bottles out of the environment because they have the biggest volume.
Yeah.
So the Premier then, Mike Beard, said, we're going to bring in a CDS in 2 years' time. And they did. And then once that came in the other states, Queensland followed and WA followed. Victoria was a holdout.
That's insane.
Just delayed. Yeah.
Can you explain, I'm not sure if you know, but how does it, like, who's paying for it? Is it the political party responsible? Is it at a council level? Or when we're looking at corporations and we're talking about making them responsible, are they pitching in saying, if your product is found here, you pay extra? Or how does that economically work? Do you know?
Yeah. So when it was pick a bottling company, so when they sell a bottle to a distributor or whatever, they charge an extra 10 cents for it. And that money gets paid to a government fund or government account and sits there. And so that 10 cents ripples down the line. The consumer pays 10 cents for it. And then when the consumer redeems it, they get the 10 cents out of that fund goes back to consumer. But only about 80% is going to be recycled. So there's 20% of the money that the bottling companies have put into this fund is not going to be returned to consumers. And so that 20% in Victoria is worth like $50 million. And that's what pays for the fund to operate, the unredeemed deposits.
So like the vending machines and all the, yeah.
That seems like a pretty circular system to me.
It is. It's a no-brainer. Once you set it up, it's easy to run. But they fought it for years, and the governments dragged their feet. And
I mean, I want to play devil's advocate for a second. What do you think the problem or opportunity with something like this? Because there's always going to be a problem. Like, I'm not sure if the other states have had certain issues with people vandalizing or stealing the money, or even on an environmental recycling facility. Like, does the things or plastics go in there get recycled efficiently? Do they go in the correct box? Do we know that it will operate efficiently in the way that it's supposed to?
You mean efficient as in reusing the product?
Reusing, repurposing.
So they're not going to be repurposed. They're all going to be ground down and remade into other bottles again, in theory. When the Chinese sword came down in 2018, everything just went to landfill. They had no other options.
Yeah.
There was a new plant opened in northern Victoria just a couple of weeks ago, and they can handle 4 billion bottles a year to grind them down into pellets to make new bottles from again. So that's the first time it's happened in Australia.
Yeah.
Victoria alone uses over 4 billion bottles a year. So they're opening up a second plant in Western Melbourne here in the next couple of years. And New South's got one, Queensland's got one under construction. So hopefully they will be able to start make bottles. I mean, one of the companies said they were planning to use 100% recycled material in their bottles, and some of the bigger companies have come out and said they want to do 50% or something like that. Yeah. I don't remember the exact numbers, but...
And when a company says they want to do that, they can essentially go to this facility that recycles the plastics from these vending machines, and they pay them, and then that's how they're recycled. They can then label or have some sort of certification that this is indeed recycled.
Yeah, so they're not using virgin plastic.
Yep.
Starting over again from scratch.
There's a couple of problems, because when you talk about handling food, the requirements are much tighter than making a kid's toy or a computer case or something. So the study came out of England just a few weeks ago. They said that once you grind plastic up like PET, ball made from, it actually releases the extra surface area, allows it to release more chemicals, and so they're saying that the reground material could be more dangerous than a virgin material. So they were talking about a super washing facility that's going to add considerable cost to the recyclate to get it to be food quality again. So a plethora of problems are coming up.
Yeah. I mean, with food, I don't see, like, in my plastics research, I look a lot specifically in the sector of how it affects our health. Yeah. And specifically in the food realm, it's horrific. We know that plastic leaches into the food, into our teas, into the coffee.
Yeah.
So I don't see why I mean, I understand that this is probably years away of getting implemented and just to be generally understood about the plastic. Like you tell someone that plastic leaches into their product and it blows their mind thinking that it's a physical form, not understanding that its liquid form is actually petrochemicals. Yeah, correct. So it's with food, I'm like, why doesn't everyone use like plant materials made? Because that is the least chemically driven alternatives, like corn, pineapple, what other ones are there? Like there's so many alternatives. So with food, I'm like, why do we even have to look to plastic when we already know through science and through decades, maybe like 20 years of science now, that it is horrific for human health?
It's cost. Just comes down to cost.
Comes down to cost.
Why does McDonald's exist? Because they serve tasty, cheap food. You know,
I don't know about tasty, but
tasty
That's
to a lot of people.
subjective.
to a lot of people, yeah.
I mean, the idea of packaging food and being able to make something in the US and ship it here and having it quality food, would be unheard of 100 years ago. But we do it all the time now, and so the plastic packaging is just ruling our lives.
And you're right, honey, it's cost. And I mean, I agree with that, but we have this conversation all the time because it's cost. We're only looking at it right then. We're not looking at, like you said, the cost of down the line, health problems with people, or what this is going to cause in the future. Similar with the climate, really. We're like, oh, no, God, no, we can't do that. It's going to cost too much. But we're not really looking at the right cost right now anyway. So, for them to say, oh, it's going to cost too much to, to change to renewables. I'm switching the subject a bit here, but, well, what's it going to cost if we don't? Yeah. We're already seeing cost in, insurance claims and fires and floods and devastating storms. But for some reason, because that's not in our face all the time, maybe. I don't know. We're real short-term thinkers as humans.
Too far down the line. We run on a 3-year election cycle, so anything beyond 3 years is not considered.
Yeah. Well, I love that you bring up the cost of not doing something because although it's incredibly lengthy, I try to keep up with the IPCC. And their Chapter 3 was just released of their 6th assessment, which is said to be the last one before the 1.5 becomes unreachable. And they talk a lot about, which I love, what you just mentioned. They talk about the cost of not doing something, which is very unique. And you don't think about it. It's like, what's the cost of not going to renewables or not use? And they talk about that, which is something that's really fascinating because someone, like let's look at solar, for example, it's not free, like I don't think, to install solar panels.
Right.
But what's your cost of not doing that? It's going to be more expensive to not use plastic sometimes because you have to go to places like the source and they're a bit more expensive. But it only matters, I guess what my point is, if the majority do it, which is the worst part. So we've got people like you and I, and while we don't pick up rubbish, it's incredible, but we do our part by not trying to contribute to what you're picking up. But it's like, I always talk about how can we get the everyday person to really think about this and make that full connection.
How do you get
I
mainstream?
see you shaking your head, Ross. Like, that's a great question.
We're thinking the same thing all the time.
Tough problem. Like yesterday, we went down to it was fairly somewhat well announced, a cleaning session to get the public involved.
Called C to source. So again, we're all trying to realize.
Source to C.
I think it was C to source.
Anyway.
We're trying to get the source of the problem rectified so we don't have the problem. So again, if we quit making single-use plastic, then it won't get used, it won't get littered, it won't harm our wildlife, it won't be full of our oceans and in our bodies, like you said too, because we're consuming it as well. Sorry.
The point I was going to make was this group was fairly well funded to hold these sessions. And we had 18 people turn up.
That's insane. Are you saying that's not enough?
It's nowhere near enough. There would have been 1,000 people walk past us on the footpath. And, what are they doing?
Yeah.
But only 18 turned up to bother to pick up some plastic in St Kilda.
Yeah. And it was a beautiful day yesterday. It wasn't like it was raining and blowing. But how do you get mainstream to pay attention? That's
great question.
You know,
that's
and
what
do
we're here
something.
to find out.
Yeah, do something.
Maybe we can't. Maybe. I mean, it's a weird double-edged sword situation, because for policies to change, people have to care. For people to care, policies have to change.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, one person at a time, I suppose, is the best
Yeah.
way we can do it. Having these conversations, talking to friends and family is how I probably see it.
Yeah.
Posting online, because like we were talking about before we clicked recording, a lot of people don't know what the go is with plastic. People haven't made that link to
No.
climate change. People don't realize that the bin isn't a magic garbage eating contraption. And, you know, we recycle 10 to 15% of all plastics. Like, a lot of that ends up in the Philippines, Indonesia. Like, where Australia is not an outlier here. You know, lots of countries do it badly.
They do.
We're especially bad, maybe. But, you know, and even if we did it at 90%, that is honestly not good enough. The fact that, you know, our rubbish ends up in other oceans, especially, not our beautiful land, but, you know, countries with the low socioeconomic development, like the Philippines, Indonesia.
And little infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. They don't have
we
the
shouldn't be doing
infrastructure to
that.
create the rubbish, like recycle it or put it in landfill. It just ends up in, you know,
And open.
Like, have you watched like the videos of like the beaches in the Philippines and the kids playing in like
sorting through rubbish, and you know,
that's
it's
it.
just,
They make like a few dollars by sorting through it, and it's
we got to see the worst of the global economy in action. We spent some time volunteering in Tanzania.
Yeah.
And they have no infrastructure. I mean, the country has no money to do anything but really basic stuff. And yet the West would come in and give them, would not give them, but sell plastic water bottles.
Yeah.
So they were cheap. And so you'd see all these plastic water bottles around, and the Tanzanians had no idea how to dispose of them. They had no idea there was a plastic problem.
no.
I mean, a lot of them would get reused for store their cooking oil and that, but a small fraction. And you drive into Dar es Salaam and you go past a bus station and you'd swear it had snowed, but it were just plastic bottles like this deep on the ground for 100 yards around the bus station. They just had no way to deal with this plastic, and yet here we were in the West producing them by the million a day and selling them into these African countries, and just totally irresponsible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It is like that, because even from like that IPCC report, they did a report on which countries affected by climate change and by how much. So that was really important, by how much. And when we look at that particular metric, the developing nations, Central Africa,
Were they the bigger?
like your Southeast Asia, they were hit the hardest.
Yeah.
But here, and look, Australia gets hit. We've obviously got people dying in the floods and people getting affected by the fires. We're not immune to it. But when we're looking at categories of countries that are most directly impacted, Nepal, India, Sri Lanka, these are getting swaths of issues. They got no funding, no facilities, and it's like we're just here sitting pretty, drinking our coffee cups because you know, we're privileged. It's such a strange dichotomy,
unbalanced in that respect. Yeah, and they talk about, even, is it the Marshall Islands or the you know, they're seeing sea level rise.
Yeah.
It's going to affect. It already is affecting their livelihoods, and they probably contributed very little.
Yeah, they're the
to
ones
the
that
global.
actually contribute the least. So Marshall Islands, Fiji, PNG, they all contribute the least. But there's this horrific video
they'll
to
feel
your
the
point
effects.
of the Marshall Islands Prime Minister or President. I'm not sure what they have. He didn't travel to the COP26 that they had, but instead he sent a video, and it started off quite zoomed in. I'm not sure, but as he zoomed out, he was waist deep in water.
You can see the water
and he's
level.
Like, a few years ago, this was land.
Yeah.
Now I'm in water, and it's pretty scary stuff.
Yeah,
It is.
The storm surge is the one that's going to get all those people first. You know, just annihilate all their coastal properties.
Yeah.
I think part of the issue, you know, you were talking about, like, how do you get change to happen too? I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I have no backing to say why this is so, but I think people are still too comfortable, like particularly in this country. I mean, I know there are people that experience and still experiencing hardships, but as a society, we're pretty much comfortable. Like you say, people go buy their coffee. I mean, we don't drink coffee, but I think coffee's like $5 a hit. It's not cheap, and the price keeps going up, but people still living very comfortably. And so if you're too comfortable, you don't feel like you need to make change, because change is hard for everybody. But if you want to make a difference, to make the world a better place, and we all do need to change. But if we're still comfortable, then it's like, oh, somebody else can do it. I'm going to keep living my life the way I live my life. And until we all, if that ever would happen, but until we all together realize that we are one planet, we're all interconnected. Like you said, we have these country divisions, but when you look at Earth from space, no such thing. It's one little lone, beautiful planet that we need to all look after.
Yeah.
So how do you put like fire under people to realize that, again, it might cost something to change it, but hey, we created the problem. Let's be responsible here. Dogs didn't make plastic. We did.
Yeah.
Cats don't use single-use plastic. We started it. So it's our responsibility to fix the problems that we created for all of all of the beings. And that's what really gets me upset, that these innocent beings that we share the planet with are suffering because of our convenience.
Yeah. It's
really
such a weird paradigm. And the best word I can describe with words is cognitive dissonance and pushing their responsibility. So like you said, so as an individual, no, it's the company's responsibility. The company's like, no, the individual pays for my product. Okay, it's the government. No, the government is at the whims of this corporation that thinks it's the individual. Yeah. So it's this strange, if it is to be, it's up to me kind of mentality that you have to adopt. Like, kind of jumping on that, how do you guys address the plastic in your life? Because I'm assuming as you began doing this, or picking up rubbish, you must have questioned, like, how much are we contributing as individuals, as a couple, as a family unit to this issue? How did you go with those conversations, and how did you change your personal living situation?
Household-wise, Ramona does most of that. But, we just went down the road of, do we really need this plastic item? And if it's a single-use item, we know we don't need it. We started getting vegetables in paper bags years ago when there were plastic bags still around in the produce department. We never took a plastic bag from a store when they were handing out plastic bags. We never buy vegetables wrapped in plastic.
No. And I mean, again, very privileged. I go to a market, the South Melbourne market, where things are still wrapped in plastic, unfortunately, but it's easier to buy things that are not wrapped in plastic. You can go to, I can go to the pasta shop and bring my own stainless steel container, and she'll fill it for me. So you don't have to use the containers that they have. And I think possibly the supermarkets might start doing that as a trial, like at their deli. I think I read that in certain locations. They might start that where people can bring their own container. Like I mentioned, we don't drink coffee, but when we get hot chocolate, if we get it from out, we always take a keep cup. And if the business doesn't take it, then I don't get one. It's that simple.
Yeah.
It's not, it takes a little bit more planning, but it's kind of fun. Like, before I go to the market, I've got a bag full with all my containers. Bring my egg cartons back, and they refill the same egg cartons even. It's just like putting everything together before you go to the market, instead of just going and having to expect everything to be provided to you.
Yeah.
We use a lot more, there's some things that you cannot buy that aren't in plastic. If you want to eat frozen peas, they are in plastic. There's no other way to buy them. You can buy them fresh certain times of the year, but that's it. But as minimally as I can, and I will recycle that with Red Cycle, which takes soft plastics. A lot of things I've turned to just like buying glass, like it comes in a glass, like tomato sauce.
Milk, for example.
Milk, I won't buy it in a plastic container, a squeezed plastic bottle.
Wouldn't, just to play devil's advocate here for a second, wouldn't the glass be worse because it takes so much more energy to both produce it and to recycle it?
That's true. And there's definitely, glass has a very high energy content.
To make,
But these bottles do get washed and reused. They don't get ground down and made into a new bottle. The company takes them back. But you're right. If you put them in your recycle bin, and you're talking about a lot more energy consumption to do that than it would be to make a new plastic jug.
And I do, but you're right. I mean, everything we do has a consequence. So it's just trying to be more aware of how least of a footprint can I make on this planet today. You know, like I'll try to make my own sauce if I can, whereas I used to just buy all of that.
Yeah.
Little things. We don't buy new clothes anymore. Not that we get any clothes, but when we do, we get them from an op shop.
Yeah.
You know, and we donate things in our closet that we haven't used. But it is hard. And you know, we have a small garden, but there's no way we could grow what we needed for a year. You know, in a city, particularly, I think it's harder than if you lived on a farm.
Take a lot of time too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different experiences.
Yeah.
At a farm, you know, you can grow your food, yes, but then where do you get your pasta from? Do you have the options of going to like a market where they have?
Yeah, you don't always have that.
Everything's got the wins
Exactly.
and losses, I think, and weighing it up is also really important. Like we're in, you know, western suburbs, we have to drive to like Collingwood to get plastic free. Is
To bulk
that
stores.
more worth
I know. Yeah.
than the fuel we've used to get there and back, like 50, 60, 70 kilometers? Like, where is the calculator I can use for
You
this?
have to figure the whole.
You have to figure it all out. And not that it's, you know, they need to make it easier, but that's some great stuff.
We had a very good example the other day. We went to, after a swim, we went to a local cafe with some friends. And we ordered a hot chocolate and a
We were
muffin.
sitting down.
Yeah.
And they normally bring the hot chocolates out in a ceramic mug,
Yeah.
you know, which she washes and uses again. But she brought out the drinks in these disposable cups with a plastic lid, and then she brought the muffins out in a cardboard tray with a plastic fork.
And we were horrified.
And I'm like,
Like we're sitting here.
we're sitting here, you know, the chocolate in a cup and the napkin on a muffin would be fine. She goes, oh no, don't worry about it. See that yellow bin over there? This is all compostable. Put it in the bin and it's all composted away. I'm like, okay, but what about the energy required to make all this stuff? The CO2 emissions that came from all of the production of the stuff that we use for literally 1 minute and then threw away into a compost bin. You know, people don't get it. There's a cost of everything.
Yeah.
You have to watch it.
And some of the stuff she gave, I didn't even need. Like, I don't need a knife. I'm eating a muffin. I don't need a knife for that. But when she gave it to me, there's no way they would reuse it. It had to go to the compost. But again, it was created then for no reason. Now all this energy was used to make something that was never even used. It's just insane.
It's this weird level of greenwashing. The first step we took was going, okay, we understand, I think there's a general consensus that plastic is mostly bad. Like, it's on the news that plastic...
Yeah, it's starting to make
like, I think...
a bit mainstream now.
That's right. I think it's getting to the point where like most people will realize, okay, if shops are not accepting plastic bags or they're not giving like the single use anymore, maybe that why they're doing that is, you know, make someone look into that.
Yeah.
But now we've gone to that greenwashing stage where we get that compostable stuff, not realizing, like you said, Ross, that there's energy requirements to that. And it's like we've pretty much jumped to the lesser evil instead of just jumping to, I just don't need it.
Exactly
I just don't need
right.
it. What for? Like, it's not, I don't know, like you can just eat a muffin with the hands. Like it's very strange how we've made a jump to something in the middle where we could have just really gotten along the ridge to the other side.
Yeah. We do. The other thing I was thinking of, because I always am looking for new ideas too of better ways to do things. We use like shampoo bars and shampoo soap now, so you don't have the plastic packaging and all that, which is good. I just lost my train of thought. What else was I going to say?
There's a lot of stuff with the bathroom in particular. Like, that is a haven of plastic. Like, and it's hard. Like, there's safety razors, there's shaving butters that you can get. Like, there's lots of different options in regards to that. But yeah, making your own, I think, is a huge key as well.
If you can,
if you can. Like, Sean makes laundry detergent, softener, and it's so easy. Like, the softener's what? Vinegar, essential oils.
Okay, I'll need to get the recipe.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's
DIY recipe.
That's the recipe.
It.
That's for the
Even amounts?
Just, no, 10 drops.
Okay.
10 drops of
To your liking.
Yes.
But like, how easy is that? And how cheap is that? Like, people are paying like, there's this like Earth brand that's like $13 for a litre, and it's like climate friendly and all these things, which I'm sure they do better than your thing next to
right.
that's $2 because you pay this huge premium. So I'm hoping that there's something
Yeah,
there.
they've done something.
Still in a plastic bottle.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's still in a plastic bottle, whereas we have just the one bottle that we've bought. Just chuck the vinegar,
And
which you
just
can go
keep
to the source,
use it over and over
get
again.
get the vinegar in your reusable bottle, use it, done.
Yeah.
And it's
There's a shop in the South Melbourne market. You just take your bottle and they'll refill it with laundry detergent or bathroom soap or whatever. And so you're just not using any new plastic at all.
Over and over, yeah.
like, what an effort is that? Like, why? It's insane that we have to make this effort to care about the environment. It's like to be healthy.
Yeah.
It's like that whole meme culture of I can get a $1 Hungry Jack's burger or a $5 salad. And it's like, why is it that I have... And then we're confused as to why people in low socioeconomic areas have...
Unhealthy.
have more cases of diabetes. They have, then you've got income loss because they're sick and they don't have the sick days. And it's this perpetual cycle of chaos. And it's the same with plastic use. It's like you have to drive longer. So now you're spending more of your own money and resources to do something that is good for the environment that you're doing that you don't have to do. No one's forcing you to do that. And I feel like it'd be cool to have, well, maybe this kind of ties back to that incentive of putting your plastic back. But if there was another incentive of some magical kind that said that tallies up how much rubbish you're using through the year, and people who use the least get, a voucher or
Get
whatever
another,
it is.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we seem to have that opposite. Even when you buy organic, it costs a whole lot more than non-organic. We should be the other way around.
Yeah.
Healthy things for us and for the planet should be much less by price.
If you look at organic food in a grocery store, it's all wrapped in
Often
plastic.
it's wrapped in
I
plastic.
know.
It's just...
It's like it's
weird.
I can't do it. I can't buy that stuff in plastic, even though you're telling me it's organic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. And you got to weigh it up. And I don't think we can ever work out the math of what is better for the soil buying organic, or is it the fact that plastic wasn't produced? And it's like, sometimes my mum comes home and I got these capsicums. I'm like, Mum, they're wrapped in plastic, but it's organic. And it's like
you
what do you
weigh the odds,
weigh
huh?
up with? Like,
Yeah.
is it the soil regeneration that you're hoping for, if it is even organic properly and it's not greenwashed
True,
or
it's
whatever
not
it is?
really.
But it's like, I think personally, I'm wondering where you guys sit on it. The only times I'll ever buy something wrapped in plastic at the shops, first, like punnets of like raspberries, blueberries, so hard to avoid.
Yep.
It's the organic stuff that's about to be thrown out. Because I know if that gets thrown out, that's going in the landfill. No one's recycling that properly. No one's doing that. Whereas I can take that, give that soft plastic back to Red Cycle, which I haven't looked into Red Cycle. I hope they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
I know they make park benches and stuff like that. Have you guys looked into Red Cycle, by the way?
Yeah, they actually, I think they are doing a good job. The only issue is we create so much of it, unless the demand exists for products made from recycled material, then they get so much material. What do they do with it? Kind of thing.
Yeah, what they call pull through. There's not enough pull through.
Right.
There's only so many park benches we can make.
Yeah. Is it mainly like park benches and facilities like that they're making? Do you know?
Yeah, so Red Cycle is a collection. I mean, they just have an office. They don't have any facilities.
Oh, really? Okay.
So they're just an admin. So there are companies that will take the soft plastic, recycle companies, and they'll chop it up, regrind it, and make it into new plastic. And then companies like Replayers out in East Melbourne will take it and make a park bench or some bollards or something.
Our deck.
Oh,
Our
no
deck
way.
is made from replayers.
As in, but that's wood.
No, it looks like it.
No way.
It's recycled plastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
So let's look at did you weigh up the cost of using like wood and this recycled plastic? Do you know where that was economically for you guys?
So that was a little bit more expensive than a wooden deck
Right.
to buy.
But you made that decision that this is what
we get
want.
a 25-year colour guarantee. We never have to oil it.
Yeah.
Whereas a wooden deck, you'd be oiling it every year. So cost-wise, it's a much better option.
It's like having solar.
Did you say less maintenance?
Yeah.
There's no maintenance
There's
on
none really. Sweep it
Really?
every now and then.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I had no idea that stuff like that. Because plastics, in their very nature and how they're designed to last forever.
They are designed to last forever, which is a positive thing when you're talking about something that's not meant to be used for 5 minutes. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny? I'm not sure if you ever saw these ads. I found like these ads somewhere in like from the 70s or the 80s when plastics really started
Was
having
the
their
new-
revolution.
yeah.
And the ad was something like, "You never have to wash the dishes again."
Yes.
Do you remember what?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I know what ad you're talking about.
Yes.
They're throwing
And
them up in the air.
yeah, you see
Yes.
it up in the air, and they're just throwing the whole
Plastic
plate in the
plates
bin.
and,
Yeah.
oh, yes.
Yeah, it's so funny how it's changed. Whereas, designed to live forever. Like that's incredible, and the biggest curse of plastic.
And the
really.
curse, right? Yes. I don't know if people thought back then that a landfill was an endless pit, or I don't think people think it was like you said earlier, out of sight, out of mind. You put it in the bin, it's in the curb, it's at the curb. You don't know where it goes. Doesn't matter. It's just gone. But I think, like you said, we're starting at least to get a bit more mainstream. And I mean, the cost of landfill is going up, so rates go up. So again, it's trying to get people then, okay, well, instead of paying higher rates, having more rubbish, what if you reduced your waste?
And all of a sudden, it
Oh,
affects
wow.
the individual.
Yeah.
Which is what we want.
Which is, and like you said, don't jump to let's just substitute some other thing that will create another problem. Let's just reduce it. Do we need it in the first place? So I think those shifts are out there. I'd like to see them a lot bigger than they are, but I think we're at least heading in the right direction. I just hope we get there in time.
Yeah. I never really thought about what the time is because, like, when is it going to be too late? With plastics, I don't know if there is going to be a too late. Like or maybe we've already surpassed it when we're looking at some, like, I know there was a study out of Canada that looked at a specific lake and they found that 100% of the fish species that it took out had plastics in it. Now we're finding plastic in human lungs. People in South America are actually having miscarriages due to the plastic in their intestines and their organs and their reproductive system. So maybe it is too late. I mean, the human body is very, it's good at surviving.
Adaptable.
Late is a relative term, and the advantage that plastics and the emissions industry have is that humans don't live forever.
Yeah.
So, if you guys have kids, they will grow up in a slightly different world than what you grew up in. And their kids will grow up in a slightly, but nobody will know. Your grandkids will never know the world that you grew up in. To them, what they have is the norm. That's how the world is. And it might be plastic floating down the street and every lake you can't swim in, but that's all they know. So they won't be able to go back. Oh, wouldn't it be nice if it was clear and full of nice blue water we could go swimming in? That thought will never enter their mind. And so that's the problem we have with kicking the can down the road to future generations. They will never know what we had. And I don't know what my grandfather had,
Yeah.
Like my dad used to go fishing in the sea and he'd always catch fish.
Yeah.
You go fishing in there now, you won't catch anything. It's just gone.
Yeah. It's very different, isn't it? It makes you think about, and that's why there's a lot of young people, like if you look at climate protests, they're saying, we're scared, but we're pissed off at you. Like
you made this. Exactly.
And I get it. Like, I don't want to see a 13-year-old female on the streets. That's not her job.
No.
Her job is to be a child and to play and to go to school so she can have an education. Like, imagine, we know, like with Africa continent in particular, only because I've done a lot more research there. Look at like HIV and diseases. Women are uneducated. They don't know, and they have to sometimes sell their bodies for food because they don't have an education. And now that's beginning to happen in developed nations, or I don't want to use the word developed to not be politically correct, but more Western nations, that's correct. And why should a 13-year-old girl do your job? Like people probably like around, I don't know, it's just they're shifting the blame and and they deserve the blame to be shifted in my mind, but it's crazy how I'm curious more than anything actually as to how the next generation is going to create this norm because it is so different. Like the fish in the ocean has changed with 99% of sharks wiped out all of a sudden. And that's due to multiple industries, of course, like the finning industry and and all of that. But the oceans have just copped it hard. Like if you know the ad on the plastic release, you'd also probably know that a few decades ago, they used to just take these big ships to the ocean, just drop barrels.
Yeah.
Because it's the ocean. It'll
go somewhere, won't it? Yeah.
It's just like launching it out to space.
Yes. Yeah. shifting it off so we don't see it. And
That's
then
right.
Yeah.
And if you don't see it, it's not there.
Yeah. But I know what you're saying, Ross, about generations change and all of that. But still, like you're saying as well, Tom, the ocean is life. I mean, we all need the ocean. If the ocean's dead, we're all going to die. It doesn't matter which generation we are. There are some things that really would be too late if, you know?
Yeah.
No, we can't live without water, without clean water.
Yeah.
That's,
No.
unless...
But even like in climate change, the 1.5 degrees, it was a number pulled out of the air. It's going to be a different world at 1.5 degrees. It's going to be a different world at 3 degrees. But people will have to suffer and live under those conditions which we enjoy now, but they will never have.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're just changing biodiversity. So we have no idea what effect we have.
No, it's,
the
it's just
issue
it's
of
the best
bees
guesstimation.
Yeah. But, if we decimate a certain population of something, it may just decimate the rest of the whole living species. And we don't know. We think that we do know everything, and we don't. Somebody was saying yesterday about humans could even become more stupid. And we were like, oh, no, we're stupid enough already. Please.
How are they? Do you know they're saying we'd become more stupid? Is it just
I think he was talking about ingesting plastic, actually.
right?
He was talking about, I think studies have shown that we ingest about a credit card size of plastic. Have you heard that as well?
Yeah, credit card a week.
Not a year. You're right.
Yeah, I wish it was a year.
It was, yeah. And he was saying how it was found in organs and tissues and, breast milk and babies' feces. It's everywhere. I mean, it's in the deep trenches of the Mariana?
Yeah, Mariana, yeah.
Yeah. And he was saying, it gets into organs, who knows what's going to happen. And he was kind of jokingly saying, if it gets into our brain, what if it makes us more stupid?
Yeah.
And I was like, hang on, aren't we already stupid enough to allow that to happen?
Yeah, it's insane
I mean,
how it
we
really
create all this.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's such a small, when we're looking at like climate change, which has come up a few times, or actually on a global scale, plastics production is only actually responsible for 3 to 4% of all fossil fuels. So it's not, it's big enough of a number if you kind of zoom in and really realize how much CO2 is really created. I'm not sure if that figure of the study I was looking at takes into the account the life cycle. Ross, you've mentioned the energy expenditure on creation and recycling. Like that's a big deal, especially with glass and plastics, especially if you don't have the facilities available.
And transporting it. Yeah.
Transport's a huge
Yeah.
deal.
The number I recollect on plastic is about 20% of the emission
Of emissions.
was due to plastic production.
Do you know if that's in Australia?
I think that was a global number,
Oh, really?
but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I remember 3 to 4%, but it could have well been 20%. I'd believe
And that
it.
could have been including other things, maybe that
maybe that
the
includes
freight
the
and the transport and everything.
all of that.
Yeah.
But it's insane because it's just the scary part. Actually, when we're looking at it, it's actually an upward trend. It hasn't slowed down. A lot of the fact that new oiling projects are starting to slow down, starting to stop. The funding's going. What was it last month or the other month? 2 projects ended up closing 2 years early. Yeah. Taree or something. Sean, do you remember that project? No. Up in New South Wales. But plastic's just on the rise. And it's insane because when we're looking around, like people should be more educated, but they're really just not.
No. And I think, it's almost like the oil industry and the fossil fuel companies see the light that, if we really move to renewables, they're going to lose money. So what can they do to keep, plastic? We can use our oil for plastic. I mean, they're building new plastic plant facilities in the United States.
It's huge production capacity.
We already have too much, like you say, and we're still planning on more and increasing our production of plastic. It's just...
They want to double it by 2040 or something. Double the world's production of plastic.
Yeah, I did read something like that, but kind of touching back on how it really affects us. It's actually fascinating. I was reading this paper, and as of like 2013, there was a huge rise in studies on the blood biomarkers and plastics inclusion in all of that different PECTs, and they actually found that there was a really big scare saying that plastic could be the end of humans because they looked at mothers that gave birth and they measured the amount of plastics in her bloodstream and through birth. And then they followed that child up until teenagers, and they found that the mothers with the highest amount of plastic in their bloodstream, the male children had about 90% less testosterone
Wow.
in their bloodstream, and actually had a very high chance of being infertile. So they're saying that at the rate that's currently happening in South America and Latin America, by about 2048 to 2050, they could have an infertile population or generation. That's scary. Like, that is a threat to humanity.
And that's not that far away.
No.
I mean, it's 2022, so we're not talking.
Just we
You
watched
think we
one
can
and
make
they,
difference?
They did an Australian study, but they looked at women here and in the US and Europe, and they were looking at flame retardant, which is added into plastic, into milk, breast milk. And the US was like off the scale. Women they sampled, and Australia was like a tenth of that.
I think they did the UK too.
Yeah, but even the Australian woman they interviewed, they were just horrified that they were going to be feeding this to their new
Their newborns.
babies.
Need the uprising again. I'm not sure if you remember. You might remember a bit more, Ramona, since you're from the US. But they had that huge uprising on BPA. Because they were feeding it from the plastic bottles.
Because it came, the lining of things had
and the
BPA
tins
in
and stuff, and it was actually mums that led that huge change. And now what do we have everywhere? We look BPA-free tins, BPA-free containers, and that's not the end of our problems. But this was a revolution done by humans. Like, done by mums.
Who were interested.
Who were just interested. Like, this community group. And so much change was made. And it was like another one. It was actually found in paint. And the way they painted the homes. And it was affecting the brains of children. Bang. Mums, again, got together. Changed it. And now in the US, it's illegal to use that particular chemical
that
in paint.
additive or whatever. Yeah.
It's insane.
Do you know the... I think she was an anthropologist, Margaret Mead. Do you recognize that name? She famously
nice name.
said,
It flows, Margaret Mead. Yep. No,
now I won't be able to quote her exactly, but she said something like, "Never underestimate the power of a person to make a change. That's the only thing that will change is people."
Yeah.
So you're saying community groups or small groups or taking on these big corporations, but it's gotta happen.
It does.
Yeah.
Which is one of the few things that give me hope that small, beach patrols can make a difference at a significant level. Because, like I said at the beginning, if it is to be, it's up to me. And I think a lot of the time people take power away from themselves unnecessarily. Any huge change that we've seen in human society, the way we live, done by humans, and sometimes a small group of humans. Like the whole Black Lives Matter industry, and even like the freeing of the slaves, that political constitution was started by a handful of people that ended up growing. Like, if we really look at the history of humanity, it's the small things. And that's maybe sometimes I think people need to be reminded of that when we're looking at issues like climate change and plastic. Because if you look at like the COPs, like that is a culmination of thousands of people. If they can't make a change, who can?
Really?
If they're listened to and acted upon, of course.
Yeah, because the problems do seem really overwhelming, and it feels like we're not doing anything on a big scale in terms of plastic and, burning of fossil fuels. So like you said, individually and community and growing from that grassroots, I think is going to be our final push to make policy really change. So we do get changes, behavior changes, and action.
I have a little bit of a different take on that. I mean, I think we will get there.
Yeah.
But if you think about, you got government sitting in the middle, and you got corporations, big corporations who make, bucket loads of money, and often, they're not knocking them, they're selling a very good product sometimes, but they have a lot of money. And then you've got the grassroots movement and the beach patrols and whatever who got very little money. So while we have the numbers to influence government, these guys have got the dollars to buy government. And that's going to continue to happen and continue to happen. Governments are going to keep getting funded large amounts of money to maintain the status quo or even change it to what these guys want. We see that in the US particularly. And so it's always an uphill battle for the small groups And there might be, the Greta Thunberg, there might be millions of them, but they've got no real finances compared to these ones to buy results. And I just see that as an enormous battle.
It is. And sometimes, and I'm not going to say sometimes, I'm going to say a lot of the times, I'm sure it feels mega uphill. Like you're just pushing a rock up a huge incline and you're not sure when the downhill is even going to
Yeah.
be. All you got to do is keep pushing the rock up.
Yeah, because if you let go of it for a little while, you lose traction.
For sure.
Yeah.
Kind of looking on that end, I had a nice visual of when we're looking at creating a bit more of a circular system, because I think that's a big solution to climate change.
It is.
A circular economy in all facets of life, in fashion, in agriculture.
Yeah.
Almost just instilling also a feeling of community, I think, between people, between governments, between whatever other sector. It'd be really cool because a lot of the time, like you said, these grassroots don't have the funding, and it takes a lot of motivation to go out in the summer, in the winter, even when on a nice day, you have to get out of your warm bed, put on your clothes and go out and do a beach cleanup.
Yep.
I had this really cool thought of imagining like a cleanup crew and then automatically from the collections getting some sort of monetary reward straight away, which is I'm hoping this facility with the vending machines can do. You get $50, everyone goes to a cafe having their coffee, and now all of a sudden you've done something as a community, and then you're sitting down as a community, and it's like that would be, in my mind, the most utopic situation on how plastic cleanups could work. And hopefully, you don't have to do plastic cleanups, of course.
We're going to be here a while.
So kind of looking on that, with the plastic you pick up, what do you do with it? Or litter, sorry.
But the recyclables we put in a council recycle bin, and the rubbish just goes into a rubbish bin.
Yeah. Do you ever have like situations where you have too much though? Because does it go in your bin or it go in like a...
Yeah, something like we'll take our truck down and sometimes we might get 30 bags of rubbish, which we can't put in a bin, especially if it's a hot weekend coming up. They're going to get hammered by the public. So then we'll take it to the resource recovery centre and drop it off there.
Yeah.
That's through the council.
Yeah, that's through the council.
Yeah.
And then kind of going on this compostable thing, are you using compostable bags to pick it up, or are you finding that plastic bags get the job done?
Reusable.
We're actually reusable bags. So
Really?
we have our logo on it. So we have Beach Patrol,
Yeah.
Cleaner Beaches on one side, and the other side says Love Our Streets.
Yeah.
So, and Love Our Streets, I'll just add in what that is. So Love Our Streets started in 2015 as an offshoot or as an arm of Beach Patrol, because we realize a lot of rubbish, people do leave litter on the beach, but a lot of rubbish comes onto the beach from the shoreline, as I was talking about before. The wind brings it in from the bay. So it's come from somewhere else, and that somewhere else is our streets and our parks and our open spaces. So if we can pick it up there, it stops it from getting in through the stormwater drains or being blown by the wind into another waterway, coming down the water, back onto the beach. So the Love Our Street movement is really, it's growing a lot more, because anybody, anywhere can pick up rubbish in their neighborhood. You don't have to live near a beach to pick up rubbish. You can still help by doing that. So that really has been a good, and continuous thing. And the other thing I was going to mention too is, so when we developed, or we got to all these categories of rubbish or litter that we pick up commonly, we decided at 5 years we were going to quit doing the survey. Not that the litter problem's gone away, but we just thought we'd shift our focus a little bit. So we still pick up rubbish whenever we go out, whether it's the street or the beach or what have you. But Ross developed a phone app called Litter Stopper. And it's got these 32 categories of commonly seen littered items. And it can be used by anybody, anywhere. Because when you talk to government about making changes and, let's ban single use, but they want to know how much of it's out there. Why should we do anything about it? So you always have to give them data or evidence to show them that there's a problem. All they'd have to do is go outside and have a good look. But anyway, because they don't seem to want to do that, they want hard data. So the more people that are picking up rubbish, and a lot of people, if you start looking, a lot of people do it on their own anyway. Like they may not necessarily be part of a group or have time to join on the day that we do it as a group. And so the Litter Stopper app is something that anybody can use whenever you pick up rubbish, even if it's for 10 minutes outside your park because there was a picnic and everybody left their rubbish, unfortunately, or anything like that. And you can identify where you are with a GPS, is that right? How long it took you to do it, how much time you spent. You can either sort your litter and say, I collected 20 of these and 10 of these, or you can just say, I got a bag full of litter. But it kind of allows it's like an expansion of what we started doing the survey. It's like anybody can do a survey wherever they are, anytime.
The evolution of data collection, credible data collection, and giving it to the government is very important. Not only is picking up plastic off the beach important to just remove it, but if you can do something with that data to make it have an effect so that no more plastic comes on that beach, perfect world, that's how it would work. And that's how Beach Patrol is evolving to get this data. So now we're actually feeding our data directly into our government.
Nice. You're feeding two
In
birds
Victoria.
with one scone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Kind of coming on the tail end of the episode, I wanted to touch on something that you guys both do, which is an alternative to plastic through Biogone. What does that kind of look? To my understanding, it's an alternative to plastic use in businesses. Or how would you explain what you guys do at Biogone?
So at Biogone, we make all plastic biodegradable. It'll biodegrade in a landfill and thrown away. So some people ask, well, why do you want that? We're just going to recycle everything. Well, the answer is we're not going to recycle everything. We're decades away from being recycling everything. We're still producing mass amount of plastic. The industry is going to produce more. And whether you like it or not, we're still going to put massive amounts of plastic into waste. We're only, like you said before, we're only doing 15% now. The government has a mandate of, not a mandate, a target of 75% by 2025. And
Huge.
clearly we're going to miss that by a long, long way. Even industries now coming out saying we're not going to get there. It's just too big a problem. So why not make the plastic, at least we know it's going to be disposed of, why not make it biodegrade where you dispose of it? In 30 years' time, we might not need Biogone. We might be recycling 100%, complete circular economy. But we're just so far along from that now. So let's just make it all biodegradable for now so that when people have to use it and they throw it away, it will biodegrade down and back to its original constituents.
How did you address the issue? Well, to my understanding of biodegradable, it needs certain elements, oxygen included.
No.
It doesn't need oxygen to biodegrade.
No. So biodegradation under oxygen is what they call aerobic biodegradation.
Right. And
there's a horrible technology out there called degradation, which has been perpetuated for the last 30 years. And that's just setting up a very slow chemical reaction within the plastic, nothing to do with microbes at all. And with oxygen and sunlight, this chemical reaction proceeds slowly over 12 to 18 months. The plastic fragments into little bits of plastic.
Right.
But it's all plastic. Whereas biodegradation is microbes actually eating the plastic and breaking it down atom by atom to its original carbon or whatever else is in there, mostly carbon and hydrogen. So biodegradation can only occur in certain places where there's a lot of microbes. But it can occur at the top of a landfill, which is aerobic. It could occur deep in a landfill, which is anaerobic. It doesn't really matter.
So you essentially douse your product or build these microbes into it?
No. So they're using, landfills are full of microbes. They're a microbe haven because there's so much food in there.
Yeah, of course.
So we're just making our plastic into a food source for the naturally occurring microbes in there.
But so he's saying an additive. You put an additive
So
into the plastic when it's being extruded.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put a food source into the plastic. And so when they see that food source, they start to eat that. And in the process of eating that, they secrete enzymes which break the surface of the plastic under them down again so they can eat that too. And that process just continues and they'll just slowly eat their way through the plastic. And
But
it's not fast like an apple core. It could be 10 to 15 years depending on the thickness of the piece you're trying to biodegrade. But within our generation, it'll be gone.
but it does need to go to landfill.
Yeah,
So if it's littered, it doesn't do anything.
because there's no microbes.
That's right. So
But how would it go in like a natural environment such as the ocean, which is alive and full of microbes?
no microbes there that will eat plastic.
Not that eat that. Yeah.
Right, so it's only where there's food waste those
Yeah.
microbes will be.
It's only where you've got infrastructure supporting waste going to landfill.
Right, so it solves the issue for people who throw their plastic or their waste in the correct box, but still, there's obviously still not an excuse. It can't be something like you finish your bar and just throw
Right.
it out and that'll just disappear, like an apple core, you just be able
Right.
to... okay.
Yeah.
So we do also make a line of home compostable plastic products, which sounds really, really good. You think home compostable, made of plants,
Yeah.
really, really good. Well, no. There's a couple of problems with home compostable. One is that it's over 50% based on a fossil fuel product. It's only like 40% plants, 50 to 60% of this other material that allows it to biodegrade at ambient conditions. And if you think about it, the home compostable molecule can't be recycled. It has to be thrown away. So all we're doing is perpetuating the linear economy, make, buy, discard. It can't be recycled through recycle or anything. So then you've got to add up the equation. Am I better off using a plastic that can be recycled, or do I use a plastic that is made from some plants but can't be recycled? It's going to have to go to waste. And there's no right or wrong answer there. There's just two different products that have different processes in them.
I'm sure if someone with a very smart mind did all the calculations with all the reductionist equations, they could figure it out. But I think the point in all this is like it might be so minute, the difference, like it probably not even is worth the calculation. And I might be wrong, and there might be a right or wrong.
So it depends.
Yeah.
So it depends on, like, if we had a circular economy and every plastic bag was recycled, then you'd be winning.
Yeah.
But here in Australia, we don't recycle. We only recycle a small percent of it. So the plastic is 6 times more likely to go to landfill than it is to be recycled. So why not make it go away?
Yeah.
And like you said, hopefully it's just an interim product till we get to that
Yeah.
stage where we are circular.
Yeah, you're saying 15 to 25 years, but right now we actually don't have an upper limit of how long plastic will actually live in the environment. Because some people say 100 years, some people say 500 years.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on what you read. There's no, like, we don't know because plastic has only been around for, 80 years or
Decades,
something?
yeah.
Yeah.
So if we can make it, so our plastics will biodegrade away 10 times faster than a conventional plastic.
Right.
So if it takes 100 years, ours will be gone in about 10.
Yeah.
300 years, it'll take about 30. So the good thing about that is that going to landfill, all modern landfills now capture the gas coming off them. And so they can take that, which is primarily methane from anaerobic biodegradation, and they use that to generate electricity. So
Biofuel, essentially.
in a gas form,
Yeah.
So they're displacing electricity produced from coal if they're getting it out of landfill. But the government even gives it a stamp of green power. So there's some big wins when you look at a Biogone product. Yes, it can be mainstream recycled. If it can, 6 times more likely to go to landfill. And if we can go to landfill, we can claim the internal energy out of it to displace coal.
Yeah. And then obviously, like, that, what is your market for that? Are you looking at companies? Like, is that who you've decided that this product will best suit to kind of reduce their plastic use, I suppose?
So we do a lot of business to consumer, B2C, and a lot of business to business, the different product lines. Like the consumers will sell like garbage bin liners, Ziploc bags, gloves, and a whole range of things. Whereas business to business is like pallet wrapping, industrial gloves, packing tape.
Stretch wrap.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
And some of these products, and we're the only ones in the world making them, which is kind of cool.
Fascinating, because I actually listened to a podcast, would have been a year ago, about this incredible issue we have in Victoria, specifically about pallet wrapping. Like
It's
it was just humongous. Because you think of one pallet, which I'm not sure how big they were, like 2x2 or something, and maybe 5 meters high, but depending, and you've got this huge amount of plastic that consumer, which is why at some stage I'm like, yes, individuals use plastic, but businesses, corporations, companies like these guys use a mammoth amount. So I'm glad that there's solutions, even like it's just such a good step considering right now it is a humongous problem.
Yeah, every pallet you unwrap, you end up with a basketball size of wrap to get rid of. Now, a lot of it is recycled because it's clear. It is very good for recycling. And
really? Even if it's soft plastic?
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 companies in Melbourne that will actually take that stuff.
Right.
They won't pay you for it, but they'll take it.
Right.
The one we use at work, we actually pay them to come and take it away. But they'll take away the clear, the coloured, the banding that some pallets have on them. They'll take that and they grind it all up and resell it as new material.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stretch wrap, in theory, can be recycled, but if I had to guess, I'd say a lot of it is not. Just goes in a bin to be done.
Of course. If you're not getting rewarded, if there's no incentive for you, I think the only main incentive is consumers, I think, are more likely to pay for that stand. Like we, in your about section, your website, saying like climate conscious or whatever that means for that company. But it's like that whole push of people paying more because something is organic or gluten-free.
Or better.
You can have like we have a health star rating, you could have a climate star rating.
Yeah.
So what we do is, like a lot of our customers on the business side might be like small food producers, like a cheese factory or something. Mm-hmm. They're a winery, and so they're real proud of their product, but they don't want to send it out and have their customer go, it's wrapped in plastic. So we'll put a sticker on it saying this wrap is landfill biodegradable wrap. Mm-hmm. So their customers, we give them the stickers so that when they sell their product, they put a sticker on it. So their end user knows that they're getting something that's more earth friendly than a basketball side of wrap they got to get rid of.
I'm really excited about the potential of stickers like that. I'm probably equally excited as I am worried with like greenwashing, and a lot of companies say I don't think we have much of a problem as someone like the US where they don't regulate it at all. We have some regulation, like in the US you can say organic, but there's absolutely nothing organic about it. You can say gluten-free water, there's no regulation about that. Whereas in Australia, I'm hoping that when we do start to really take this switch to alternatives from single-use petroleum-based plastics to these alternatives, whether that's whether that's Biogone, whether that's a plant derivative, whatever it may be, that we have some sort of initiative so the consumer knows, so the consumer's aware, and so the businesses are rewarded economically for that.
Yeah. The only way they're going to get rewarded economically is through customer favour.
Yeah.
The government's never going to kick anything in, and it's still highly cost-driven. Mm-hmm. So it's the end user saying, I'm prepared to pay 10% more for this. Yeah. The new generation is. They are very aware.
I think they are too, so I'm glad you think that. I think they are most definitely looking to pay a little bit extra, which is a shame that firstly they have to.
And
we know, we see very publicly the government's funding, and if they have enough subsidies to support a lot of industries that are dying, and they have the authority to make big petroleum-based companies pay $0 in tax, they have the authority to subsidise alternatives to plastic that are more earth-friendly.
Well spoken.
We would hope.
I'm a bit more. I don't beat around the bush with that anymore, because I think at the start I'm like, no, that can't be true. But now I'm like, holy crap! A lot of people are like losing money, and my money is funding something I'm completely against.
You're against, right? You're giving them tax subsidies for polluting.
Yeah, that is again another full conversation.
Yes.
I'd like to finish up for today, guys. You've been amazing, and I love to leave you or the guest in the case with a bit of a minute or two to speak words of wisdom in whatever fashion you wish to talk to them about. That could be something that we were talking about today. It could be something on your mind that you've had the last day, week, month or year. It could be your favorite TV show. It's completely up to you as to what you would like to leave us with in the forms of Ross and Ramona's words of wisdom.
So I would say we don't need most single-use plastic items. We can certainly do without them, and you actually don't have to try very hard. You might lose a bit of convenience, but at the end of the day, you'll feel a lot better about yourself if you've avoided those single-use plastic items. Half of the plastic in the ocean is single-use plastic, so we just change our habits a little bit, we would solve half of the world's plastic problem. That's a massive step, just because we don't need to have that coffee cup with a plastic lid. We can have our keep cup. Small items like that, small changes that we build our economy on, the life of convenience. If we just take a step back and think, well, actually, I can do without that. I don't need this. I don't need that. And I'll bring my bag. You'll be amazed at how much difference you will make in the plastic waste problem.
Ramona, would you like to take the stage?
My words of wisdom, gosh. Look, I think as I've, added years to this life, I've become more aware of what the earth gives us. None of us would be here without the planet that we live on. And there's a saying about why would you bite the hand that feeds you? There's a saying that I like that says, look after the earth so it can look after us. And I think every little thing we do, like I said before, everything we do does have an impact on this planet. But if we can make more positive impacts and learn to live together in harmony with other beings as well. We're not the only creatures on this planet, and we wouldn't be here without the other creatures either. So I think if we can take a step back sometime in our busy, hurried life and just appreciate what we have and really look after it, not only for ourselves, but for our neighbors, for the other beings that we share the planet with, and for future generations, that will leave a good mark on the earth.
Very beautifully spoken. Thank you both for your amazing time today. You're clearly both extremely compassionate about the work you do and about, I would say almost I got a glimmer of hope from the both of you and the solutions. They are there for us to really take a hold of, especially as you pass the baton to the younger generations, as we all do, and hoping that they make do with what we've given them. Thank you again for every single day that you go out there and you contribute to a more positive, sustainable ecosystem, whether that's in the ecosystem within your community, the ecosystem between the planet. And when I say the planet, that's every single being that is connected. Look, the fish in the ocean and the bird that's flying can't communicate to you, so I'll have to thank you on behalf of them. Look, everything you do does make a difference as humans, and for the both of you, I want to direct that to you straight away, because it's something we don't hear enough. Especially as humans, if you do your hard work and your due diligence, trying to make a positive impact. So I really appreciate that as a fellow human on this beautiful floating rock we call home. So I appreciate all your time today and the wisdom that you left us with, and we'll touch base next time.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom, too, for helping to raise awareness. This is what it's all about. So appreciate your time and your passion as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Hi there. Welcome to the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed that one. I always love it when I get to have an interview that's actually face-to-face instead of over a screen. As grateful as I am to Zoom and technologies like that, the face-to-face interaction always makes for a platform to host better conversations and have a much better energy for you guys to have better content from that. Thank you once again to Ross and Ramona for coming on and sharing this impactful and inspiring conversation. I hope you guys got a fair bit out of it. It's definitely part of my journey to learning about how we can continue to live plastic free, but also it's inspired us to pick up a little bit more plastic wherever we travel. We got a little bag from Ross and Ramona, actually, a beach patrol bag that we'll be taking around Australia to pick up rubbish where we can. In fact, on a run the other day, we're just jogging around an oval, and as I run past Shana, I see that she's picked up a plastic bottle to take it to the bin. So these little conversations and these powerful episodes help us create that inspiration and impact in our everyday life. And I love that so much. If you enjoyed this conversation, please rate, review, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. Of course, you can leave the reviews on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, and even on YouTube, where you can subscribe and comment to let us know what you thought. But that is all from us today. Until next time, stay happy, eat plants, peace.